My name is Michael Marinaccio. I am the festival producer of Orlando Fringe. I started out with Orlando Fringe as an artist in 1997. I produced, directed, acted, wrote shows for 15 years with Orlando Fringe, 17 shows in 15 years I did. And then in 2011 I was hired as the festival producer here, and I started, my first festival was 2012. And since I started with the Orlando Fringe, we have tripled the size of the organization and brought in about 150% more money back to artists. We've grown this festival into one of the largest and certainly best in the United States.
Are we ready to do this? We ready to do the show?
Fringe gave me an opportunity as a young artist. I was a college student at UCF, and some friends of mine and we decided to produce something because when you're in educational theater, you're waiting for that cast list to go up at the beginning of the semester and see what they decide to put you in. It depends on what shows they decide to do, so that you're at the mercy of someone else's whims. Whereas with the Fringe, we were able to produce the content that we wanted to create and do it our own way and do it ourselves, and it was a really exciting thing. We charged $3 a ticket for our first show that we did, a show called The Zombie Doorman, and we ended up being top seller in our venue and just getting hooked. Fringe helped show me the way to be able to produce work myself so that I wasn't waiting around for someone else to decide that they wanted to use me in something. If I wanted to play a role, I produced the show and I played it. It was a really amazing opportunity to just be able to express ourselves creatively on our own and make the money from that. It's sort of been the blueprint for my career.
It was hotter than a Mike Marinaccio contemplating physical labor while prepping for the Orlando Fringe.
I first learned about Orlando Fringe back in 1997 when my friend and fellow student at UCF, theater student Todd Kimbrough, came to me and said, there's this festival and it only costs $250 to be a part of, and we can produce whatever we want, and so let's do it. And so I was sort of dragged into it. And then my first exposure was not just, we got in, we started rehearsing and started doing a show, but getting out and seeing shows. The first show I saw at the Fringe was a David Henry Hwang one-act called Bondage. And then I went to see a group called the Oops Guys that were a cabaret duo. And both shows really were daring, gutsy, and like nothing I had ever seen before. And I was immediately hooked. I wanted to be a part of this thing that created this innovative, exciting, cutting-edge work. Stuff that other theaters were afraid to do was being done at the Fringe, and that's where I wanted to be.
Tick, tock, tick.
Excuse me.
We didn't submit our audio files on time.
All right, that's fair enough. Fair.
Every year, there's a moment where I cry. Okay, I cry at least once at Fringe, and it's almost always of joy. Last year, I ran into some artists that were in from New York, and they said, where are you going? I said, I'm just gonna pop my head in on this show over here with a group of older folks. They're senior citizens. They come from Orlando Lutheran Towers. They're a group called the Downtowners, and they're between ages 75 and 103, and they sing songs that I'm gonna go pop in. Do you wanna come? And they're like, sure. And so I grab my friends and we sneak into the back, and we're standing in the back, and they're singing and telling stories, and there's just so much joy in what they're doing. They bring up Midge, who's 96 years old, to sing a solo, and I look over at my friend Katie and my friend Nick, and everybody's got tears in their eyes because it was just beautiful. And it was the last Fringe, unfortunately, for Jin, who was 103 years old. She just passed. But she passed at a waltz lesson in the arms of her dance teacher. So she died waltzing at 103, and those are the kind of people that do the Fringe. To have her and that group and these amazing people be part of my life and be able to see and be inspired by them every year that's why I do it.
So I was a big-time Fringe star. And I mean big. I mean, I'm the kind of person that gets cast in 2 Fringe shows.
I think what makes Fringe stand out is that we are all independent performing arts. So unlike other festivals where you have the festivals curating and producing and handpicking stuff, the community curates itself. The folks come from all over the world, and everybody's producing it themselves. And we are 100% uncensored, which means that 100% of the artist's creative expression is on stage, that we're not telling anybody how to do their art or how to present it. And it's really their voices. I think it's the most pure form of performing arts. You'll see more innovative and exciting material at the Fringe than you will anywhere else. You might see some really bad shows, which I think is part of the beauty of it, because in improv they say we celebrate failure because you can't succeed if you don't fail. And if you're failing, you're trying. And so what you see a lot at the Fringe is people taking big chances and sometimes falling on their face, but sometimes it's magic. And that's the unique thing about Fringe that I've yet to find at any other type of festival.
Mom! Pete Davidson and Ariana Grande broke up! And now I can't sleep! Right now I'm in a state of mind. I wanna be like all the time.
Fringe Festival started in 1947 in Edinburgh, Scotland. And it started as a reaction to the Edinburgh International Festival, which was a very exclusive theater and performing arts festival. But there were producers that wanted to be involved that weren't allowed. And so those producers got together and said, we're going to start our own festival on the outskirts, or the fringe of the International Festival. That festival soon grew and swallowed up the International Festival, which still exists as a small part of the Fringe. But the Edinburgh Fringe is now the largest arts festival in the world. In 1982, Alberta, Canada started the Edmonton Fringe Festival, and we had a few Orlandoans go to perform at the Edmonton Fringe and decided that they want to start a Fringe Festival here. So in 1992, Rick Kunst, Andy Anthony, and Terry Olson started the Orlando Fringe, and they based it on the Edmonton Fringe in Canada, which held the mandate of 100% unjuried, which means there's no curation, everything's selected through a lottery, 100% uncensored, which means that all the artist content is 100% theirs, 100% accessible, and which means the ticket prices are low, entrance fees are low for artists, and 100% of the ticket sales go back to the artist. And we have kept that model for all now going into 28 years of Orlando Fringe.
Right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, good?
Very good. Yeah, there we go. Thanks.
Oh, wow, a whole $20. That's the most I ever made in a Fringe show.
The way Orlando Fringe selects their groups is that we have an application period that runs from September to November, and no matter how many applications we get, they all go into a little bingo ball roller, and we pull them out at random. And so all of our participants are selected through a fair lottery. And no matter if it's a polished professional piece that I really want in the festival, oh my God, this show is great, or somebody who just decided on a whim that they wanted to produce a show that they wrote, they have never done this before, brand new to it, they have the same chance of getting in. And I think that's a beautiful thing, because what happens with curated festivals is you'll find nepotism. So, hey, my friends are definitely getting in first. There's none of that at Orlando Fringe. What happens sometimes with curated festivals is resentment within the community. Like, they never choose me, so I hate that festival. Or, you know what I mean? Yeah, and so you never find that because everyone's selected by chance. And it really gives everyone a chance to shine. Sometimes the shows that I look at off the bat and I'm like, they're gonna have a hard road ahead, I don't know if they're gonna be able to get their stuff together, whatever, end up being the best things at the Fringe. And it just, every time that my instincts are wrong, it validates what we do here. Because my instincts, of course, are not always gonna be right. And my taste is not what everyone else's is. So ultimately, what curates the festival is the audience. The audience decides if they want to come see a show or not, and then that artist comes and does a show, they take a chance. Either the audience comes out and sees it and validates what they're doing, or the audience doesn't come. And then they realize, okay, maybe I have to hit the drawing board again and come back next year stronger. Or they decide, you know what, this isn't for me, and I'm not coming back. But either way, the next year, our content gets better. So over 28 years, with the audience curating the work, it has really helped to our local community get better and our touring community get better. So the quality of work every year is slightly better than the last, which means that at year 28, you're gonna see the best Fringe that you've ever seen.
Oh, can you actually just take this stuff off? Because I have another scene after this, and I can't leave the stage and come back. I barely do shows, so it's very confusing for me.
Great, thanks so much. Nice meeting you.
For me, as a patron, just going to see shows, or when I'm selecting shows for our Winter Mini Fest, we have a curated smaller festival that happens halfway through the year. I love shows that surprise me. I want to see work that is different in some way than anything I've ever seen before. It could be a really unique story that I've never heard, or could be a story that I've heard a million times but told in a really unique way. But I'm looking for, in the art that I want to see, innovation. I'm looking for things that are gonna break new ground. And we find it all the time at the Orlando Fringe. It's kind of the perfect place for me to see shows. I see more shows at Fringe festivals, maybe not Orlando Fringe because I'm working a lot, but I spend a lot of my off season traveling to other festivals, and I'll see more shows at a single Fringe festival than I'll see outside of Fringe for an entire year.
Oh, Mama, one of these days, I'ma lock you away for good, alright? In a safe asylum, alright? Lock the door and throw away the key. Yeah, perfect!
I will say I have favorites when it comes to the artist. I try to make sure that no matter what I think about an artist, it does not change how I approach dealing with any artists. So I try to treat all artists equally, but of course I have favorites. My favorite of all of them, one of the most courageous titles I've ever heard, The Unrepentant Necrophile, was actually one of the most powerful and remarkable shows I've ever seen. It's based on a true story about a woman who was a mortician who was arrested and then released because it wasn't illegal at the time, but it was done as a punk rock musical, except Katie's voice is way too good to be punk rock, so it really was beautifully melodic as well. They did lots of things with practical lighting. The dead body was also the drummer, so they had a slab that had attachments for drums, and then just the hands would just move. It was constantly taking chances, telling a story in a way that no one had ever told a story before, and then also telling a story that almost no one would dare to tell. And that to me is why the Fringe exists, for artists to not only get themselves out of their comfort zones, but to take the audience out of their comfort zones. Being part of the oldest Fringe in the United States and a festival that's been named Best Festival in Orlando for 22 years is a great responsibility that I take incredibly seriously. I try to be a mentor to other Fringe producers and organizers throughout North America, particularly the ones that are starting brand new Fringe festivals. I think it's important our role as a leader in those national and international Fringe organizations is vital. And then in terms of Orlando and Central Florida and having that moniker of Best Festival, I think it's just something that we try to live up to every year and try to outdo ourselves every year. For the 2019 Orlando Fringe, I want to set some more records. Last year we set a record for number of sold out shows with 147. I want to top that. My big goal has always been $500,000 back to artists. That's something that we're going to keep pushing for this year. I think if you're not trying to improve upon your previous years and you get complacent, that's the beginning of the end. And so if I ever get complacent, that'll be the day that I resign from Orlando Fringe. To find out more about Orlando Fringe is really easy. Just go to orlandofringe.org. That's our website, and you can click on volunteer and find out about volunteering. Sign up for our volunteer mailing list. It's a great way to help out the organization. We are a nonprofit organization that gives 100% back to the artists, and also to see some shows for free. So if you're on a limited budget, you can come and volunteer and then go see some shows. To be an artist, same place, orlandofringe.org, and then click on our artists resources pages. That'll give you access to our application and tell you all about what we do and how to become an artist at Orlando Fringe. It's super easy, and my door is always open, so if anyone has any issues or has any questions about things, they can always come by or give me a call.
So you guys ready to see the show? All right, ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, or cling to your seat in terror with The Exorcist. The power of Fringe compels you.